What happens at laser tag never stays at laser tag.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
I feel like you could be like in Ghostbusters or something.
Oh my God, you have got some stories.
Let's talk about laser tag.
Who knew you were a laser tag legend?
Time to get laser unfocused. Tag Talk with Tivia.
Welcome to Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Hi, I'm Tivia. Whether it's chatting on their podcast or streaming for 24 hours straight, the hosts of the Resupply podcast are three guys who love to talk laser tag as much as I do. My guests today are from the Resupply podcast. You'll recognize them as the host, Steve-O, better known as Guy Next Door. I've got DK and Than with me, and I thank you guys for all being here from across the different time zones that we're joining each other. Thanks for joining me here today to talk a little bit of laser tag.
No worries at all.
Looking forward to it.
Hell yeah.
So, I'd love for you each to just introduce yourselves and give me a little bit of your laser tag background. So maybe we round robin this. Who wants to start?
I'll go first because I'm the oldest. So
Oh God, we're gonna be here all day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I'll try to make it brief, even though we know I never shut up once I actually start talking. That's a problem. So my code name is Old Man Than, because I never say the full thing because it's too many syllables and I stutter and it sucks. I've been playing laser tag since 1995 was when I played my first game of QZAR back in Sacramento. It was the original Arden location, was the very first place I ever played laser tag at. And
where's Arden? Cool.
It's in Sacramento. It's not
in the Sacramento area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's totally not germane. And thanks for knocking me off stride, bro. Appreciate it. So yeah, I know you're great at it. So yeah, played a couple of games of QZAR in '95, but at the time, that was a sophomore in high school, and did not have a car and didn't have much money, and trying to do that was not really a thing, and didn't really play a lot. Didn't really start playing tag until late February of '97, when the original Laser Force in Sacramento opened. They had opened in early February '97. Found it due to a newspaper article with some of my friends in late '97, and yeah, that was kind of all she wrote on that. Throughout the years, I've played various other systems at various times for just travel, play a few games at various sites, Zone, Quest, QZAR, all the biggies. But Force has definitely been the thing that I have been focused on, somewhere over like 5,000 games since that late February '97 start. Yeah,
you should get a hobby.
I should. I really should.
I like the hobby he picked.
Yeah, me too.
So what's your story then?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Okay. So I'm Steve, aka Guy Next Door. I've been playing. I guess I'm the baby of the group, the youngest Hanson of the three, if you will. I've been playing since 2000, I think, is when I joined Laser Force, and we in Auckland and here in New Zealand, we were pretty hard up for choices for tag systems, at least to my knowledge. I think I grew up in the country initially, so we had no laser tag in the country, unless you count. Oh, actually, we had, do you remember the lock-on home system? It was like you wore a headband and it had like a Super Saiyan-esque eye thing that covered your eye, and you run around the backyard with a phaser, and the eye thing would tell you how many lives you had. Well, we used to play that. I used to play with my siblings running around the driveway. It wasn't quite as good, but it was still pretty fun. Yeah. But we were pretty starved for tag when I eventually moved to the city. So my closest system was Laser Force, which opened, I think, in 2000, started 2000. And I happened to go down like a month or so after it opened and loved it, absolutely loved it. But yeah, never really wet my whistle with any of the other systems. I think we had I see that eyebrow. Oh, we had Zone, we had Zone, and I think we had Strike, and that was maybe the three. I don't recall any others, but
yeah.
You mean Delta Strike?
I think so.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's ask the expert here.
Yeah. Well, it was.
It could
was
have been
marketed
Phaser
as-
Strike. It could have been Laser Strike. I'm just assuming
Well,
it was Delta Strike.
Okay. Well, so
it was Delta Strike.
we had Laser Strike. There was a Laser Strike in the city, in the seedy part of the city too. There's a famous road here called Karangahape Road, or K Road for short. And it's essentially Auckland's red light district, but they also had Laser Strike for some reason. Just, family friendly.
Well, yeah, they got to have somewhere to leave the kids, right?
Exactly right. But yeah, that's kind of, I guess, my very brief history with Tag. Yeah.
Oh, very good. And what about our middle Hanson, DK? How'd you get involved?
Well, I'm Death Knight DK for short, because I've always kept the same code name, like we did back in the day. Not like these newfangled kids are changing their names
Damn
constantly.
youths.
Much like Than, I started in 1997, a few months behind him. I got my membership in July of 1997 at the Sacramento Laser Force. Joined my first league that fall, I think, and pretty much never looked back, and have had lots of adventures, some of them with these two lovely gentlemen over the years. Got to experience my first national competition in 1999, which was largely put together by Than and by Goofball, now the owner of the Loveland Laser Tag Arena. Played on lots of tournament teams with Than, played also with Guiding Star a couple of times. We even got all three of us together for a tournament in 2012, which was good fun. I've traveled all over the place, played a few systems here and there, including a Dark Light tournament that Than will remember from 2002, where we'd both been up for about 36 to 48 hours and decided to play a laser tag tournament anyway, because, we were young and could do that sort of thing at the time.
Stupid. Yeah.
But that was 20 years ago, and I'm not the spring chicken that I used to be. So now, still enjoy playing, but we get to do things on the podcast side also. So we're not just abusing our bodies constantly.
Well, it sounds like you love to play a tag and you love to talk tag. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about how the Resupply podcast came to be. So when and why did you start doing this podcast, and what was your purpose?
So the original genesis of the podcast was to build hype for the 2017 internationals in Sacramento. And I think I'm 100% sure it was Steve-O that had the original idea in terms of, hey, we should, record things and post them online to build hype for this. And at the time, it was me and him doing it. And I don't necessarily remember having to be talking to it all that hard, because it was like, so we're gonna talk about lasers and put it out for people to listen to, and if they listen to it, cool, and if they don't, then we're just you're just chatting with one of your best friends for a bit about lasers, and okay, cool, yeah, fine, sweet. So in the beginning, and basically through until about the time COVID started, it was an asynchronous podcast. We were recording it and releasing it, and we were doing a lot of we'd record 3 or 4 episodes on a given day, and then stagger those releases out over the course of a month. And then when COVID rolled around and everybody was trying to figure out how do we stay sane while in various forms of lockdowns and everything. Steve-O had the idea of, hey, we should do this show live on Twitch. And I know I've told the story on the Resupply before, but I was firmly convinced this was the dumbest idea ever. Like I was very much because at this point in the history, like there was a point during the asynchronous where I stopped recording and DK started recording with Steve-O, and then all three of us were recording. So by the time COVID hit, all three of us were doing the async recordings. And we got into the COVID stuff, and Steve-O it's like, hey, we should do this live. We should stream this. It'll be really fun. And I was like, you're stupid. This is the dumbest shit. Nobody's gonna want to watch us live. This is dumb. What are you thinking? But Steve-O was highly persuasive. Yeah, Steve was highly persuasive, and basically was like, we'll give it a try. Come on. And he talked me into it, talked us into it. And the rest is history. At this point, it's like, people consistently watch, and if they're not watching the live, we get a fair amount of people that watch the watch the VODs later. And one of those things where I've had to say so many times, God, I was wrong about that. And boy, Steve-O, you were 100% right. So yeah,
this
so
is recorded, right? I can clip that and play it on a loop.
Oh,
Well, there's no accounting for taste,
So yeah, so that's the story in a nutshell.
We when we sort of first started talking about doing the Twitch format of the show, prior to that, things were a little more edited. We could be a little bit more carefree about the things that we might say, or like messing something up or whatever. You'll fix it in post, it's fine. When we switched to the live show, and I think that was maybe one of your concerns back then was, well, are we still going to put out something that isn't terrible? Because we I would spend, we'd do the recordings, and then we'd spend another, I don't know, few hours editing each one, going
and by
through.
we, you mean you.
yeah. I talk about myself as a we. But I also I had sort of a vision of, well, if we're gonna go to a live format, I want to put a little bit more effort into kind of branding. And we hit up Marco out of Loveland, Colorado, who is sort of I guess player slash basically Laser Force artist. He does all their emotes. What are they called? Avatars on the suits. Yeah, a lot of Laser Force's artwork. So I hit him up. He also did Than's band's logos and stuff. Yeah,
both of them. Yeah.
So we hit him up, and I was just like, hey, look, this is the vision of what we kind of want. And so he put together like logos, which you can kind of see slapped all over all the merch that I constantly push out to our listeners. Because if you can't shake your friends down for their money, who else can you shake down? But we, yeah, I wanted it to be, I wanted us to take it serious. It's not like we weren't already taking the podcast serious, but I wanted to make sure that we, like we don't talk about a lot of serious stuff on the podcast. We have our moments, but for the most part, we kind of goofs to certain degrees. But yeah, we still approach it like we care, because we do. We really care about, we care about the show. We care about the people that listen. We care about the content we're putting out. We care. So it was important to us. Important to me.
Important to us.
Important to us.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, now, unlike my podcast, it has Unfocused right in the title. You guys really are focused on Laser Force and the Laser Force tag scene. So I'd love to know what specifically you try and spotlight.
DK, you want to take this one?
Well, since we're in the tournament community, a lot of our content is focused on Space Marines 5, which is the predominant team tournament game. But it's not like we haven't discussed other games in the past, and lately have sort of tried to branch out and talk about some of the other game formats that are out there, including Laser Ball, which has become really popular with some of the Colorado players, especially their employees, and is really taking off in Europe. So that may be sort of the wave of the future for some of the laser tag tournaments, whether that is a kind of parallel or separate scene, or whether those are kind of going to merge together. We're not really sure. But it's good just to be able to talk about those kinds of things. And with Space Marines 5 being such a complex game, we've sort of approached it a few different ways. One of trying to bring in new players and maybe give them some content and ideas that they might not have heard about or have talked about, but maybe not engaged with in the same way. Some stuff for players who are in the scene, but maybe don't know everything about what's going on. It gives us a format to talk about upcoming tournaments, about things that have worked in the past and things we'd like to do better. And I guess on the advanced side too, we've done some breakdowns of game footage. We've talked about past tournaments. We've tried to approach things at a high level and a beginner level. So it just kind of varies. And really, it will depend from week to week what we actually want to talk about. Very occasionally, we might cover some actual Laser Force content. And sometimes we just kind of, shoot the breeze, so to speak.
Yeah. Famously, you got them.
Yeah. How I like to describe it is we do the show for ourselves. And if anybody else happens to listen and enjoy it, then great. But the reality is that, even if there's, almost nobody watching live, because, that happens. Schedules hit. Sometimes you've got 25 to 30 people watching. Sometimes you've got 5. That's just life. But it doesn't change how we do the show. It's at its core, it's 3 best friends who all love Laser Force and who all genuinely like each other, just having a good time, talking about something they really love for, hour and a half on a Friday/Saturday, depending upon, which time zone we're in at any given moment, since DK and I are both in Pacific time and Steve-O's in
Neverland.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It is interesting.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's been a really great way, actually, to your point, for the 3 of us to stay really close. So, Dan lived out here for what, like 5 years,
4.5 years,
5, 6 years, 4.5. And when Dan moved back home, obviously, distance makes things a little bit tougher to maintain relationships. And then, with DK, me and DK had met like a few times and obviously played on teams and got to know each other through tournaments. But once we started doing the show and the 3 of us talking on the regular, it was, we further developed our friendships, and, it's been a really good excuse to kind of stay in touch with each other. It's really good.
Well, definitely. And just as a listener, what I enjoy about your show is that you can tell that you guys are having fun, and you can tell that there is, that relationship with your friendship, but also the passion for the game. And I think that, to invest the kind of time that goes into putting a podcast together, you really have to have that kind of love for what you're talking about and your subject matter. So I'd love to know, what is it about laser tag that really just gets you in the heart and made it something you wanted to dedicate that kind of time and effort to?
The chicks. No. I don't know, for like you kind of there's a kind of what's the gender neutral term for brotherhood? Community. There's the community aspect, for me anyway, is probably the biggest one. So the draw, I played my first tournament in 2003 and was immediately hooked on going to international tournaments, because I met so many people. We actually had a guest on yesterday, Boom Train, from Brisbane, and I'd actually just been in Brisbane the week prior, and we were talking about how it's now been 2 decades that we've had this friendship, and whilst we only see each other every 2, 3, 4, 10 years, these relationships that you build, they last. And so I think all of that comes down to a love of this singular hobby or the singular sport or the singular thing that we all participate in, that kind of builds bridges, builds connections with each other. So that, I think that's the main thing for me.
Yeah, I think I talked about this a little bit the last time that you were nice enough to have me on, Tivia. Just about, growing up playing different team sports and things like that, which I did okay, but was never really great at soccer or baseball or things like that. And then we got to laser tag and boom, it was sports for nerds. So what more could you want? Give me a chance to get some of that athletic energy out, but also sort of talk about things at an intellectual level that I think was a little bit more common with people who were into video games and esports and things like that, and provided a nice little bridge. And people who came from different backgrounds, different walks of life, but we all found this cool thing, and it evolved over time, as Steve-O said, to being about this community that was created and starting, with your own site. You make lots of individual friends at a local level. And then really, I think it's been since about 2010 that really has been the growth and the interlocking of the international scene and different sites across the US. We kind of started it in 2009, but really, I think 2010 was kind of when it started to take off. And then it's only grown from there with ebbs and flows. But overall, we've created, I think, a really strong community in Laser Force that has just evolved around this game type that, for whatever reason, even though it's been around for close to 30 years at this point with very few changes, it's just like it's a perfect game. I don't know what else to say about it. Space Marines 5 is just one of those
Forget
weird,
soccer.
one of those weird confluences of hitting lightning in a bottle and being like, wow, this game is super balanced. It's super interesting. There's always things to learn. There's new tactics that evolve. So it's just been good fun.
Well, laser tag is
Like
actually going to
chess.
celebrate its 40th anniversary in March. And so when you think about the fact, I mean, this was back in the day considered a fad, and yet 40 years later, people are still loving it, and it's still engaging people, and the scene, is finding a new audience. And so it really is pretty amazing, and it crosses bridges across international barriers, and
Absolutely.
to think that you've got friends in different countries all over because of this
Well,
game,
language,
is astounding.
like language barriers as well. We've found a whole well, not we.
Yeah,
we
had nothing to do with this. So let's be very clear.
We were thrust upon some unsuspecting Europeans. But yeah, you could be in a place where there's a language barrier, but you both understand the language of laser tag, point and shoot. It's great. Love it.
Absolutely. It kind of has a universality to it in that way.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's the best.
Now, on the international note, so the Laser Force Internationals happened not too long ago, and GND, you were in charge of putting that together with some other volunteers, correct?
Yeah, nobody should ever put me in charge of anything. It's a rookie mistake.
Then correct me.
But yes, I was technically in charge. But as a good leader, you delegate to everyone else and then take all the credit. That's my sweet spot. That's where I live. Mostly get DK to do all the heavy lifting and then take the credit for it.
Well, that's fair enough. And no man is an island. I was trying to, shout out the volunteers who are part of this. But so that took place very recently in Auckland, and there were 6 teams competing in this internationals event. So I'd love to talk a little about just kind of the scene in general. And is that number typical, or is that reflective of anything specific this year?
So I think That number is smaller than what it used to, what it has been. Back when I first started playing, that was about the kind of number of teams that would go to internationals, and by internationals, really for us, it was Australia and New Zealand, because we hadn't quite managed to amalgamate the US scene into our competitive scene, or vice versa. So back then, we were getting sort of 5 or 6 teams competing in Nats. Over kind of pre-COVID, the last few tournaments, maybe throughout the 2010s, actually, the numbers were sort of more around 8 to 10 teams per tournament. And especially the last one that Brisbane held internationals in 2018. I think we had 10 or 11 teams. You guys probably correct me, as you often do.
I think it was 9 or 10. I can't remember which. I don't think we've ever had more than 10, because it definitely gets a little bit tougher after you cross the 10-team threshold to just get in as many games as you need to, even a 5-day span. It's just not as many as you would otherwise get. So I would say, I guess, that 6 used to be a good turnout back in the day when the scenes were more isolated. Now it's a little on the small end, but because of, I think, the caliber of teams that we had, it was a really good tournament because everybody got heaps of games and got a lot of reps against one another and got to learn each other's tendencies pretty well.
And actually, the skill gap was, seemingly a lot shorter than it has been in times past, because we've had tournaments where, whilst we had good numbers, and good numbers is always good because that means the scene is looking pretty healthy at a local level. You can often find that maybe the last 2 to 3 teams, there's definitely skill gaps between them and kind of the top 2 or 3 teams. I felt that even sort of looking at team, top team versus bottom team, the gap wasn't nearly as big, which is great. I think the other reason why it was a lot less teams turnout was mostly due to COVID. So we had originally supposed to host in 2020, and obviously the world ended in 2020. And then by the time, I think 2021, New Zealand was still very strict border control. So we, wasn't going to happen in 2021. 2022, I think stuff started opening up, but there were still restrictions.
We could have done it, but it would have been way too short notice. So we're like, let's just push it a year and give everybody the chance to say, yes, it's definitely happening next year. Save your money, buy your tickets, do what you need to do.
And that 4 years essentially, because we've been talking about it since 2019. In fact, I think we'd requested back in 2018, but we've sort of got an unwritten rule that recently anyway, that if the Southern Hemisphere hosts a tournament, then the next year it'll go to the Northern and vice versa, just to make things fairer on traveling players, because obviously airfares and stuff get ridiculous. So, we were talking about hosting as far back as 2018, and for it to be pushed out for 5 years was rough. But I think, like you said, DK, the quality of the tournament was great. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. We're obviously missing a fan.
No question from watching that it was a good quality tournament. And I only ask that from the vantage point of knowing full well that you had this plan since before the pandemic. I know a lot of scenes seem to be going through something of a regrowth period. So I'm just kind of curious what you find, because I recently spoke with a tournament organizer from another system, and I'm going to ask your take on this from the Laser Force scene. So how much of the competitive scene that you play would you say is, say, player driven versus organized by an arena owner?
Oh man, it's basic. It's almost entirely player driven.
It's like 98%, I would say.
Yeah. Like we're
shout out Sanch.
Yeah, I was saying we are fortunate to have some owners of sites within the scene, and definitely shout out Sanch, the owner of the Syracuse site, being one of the most supportive owners of competitive play within the Laser Force scene, especially within the US. But by and large, like it's 98-99% player driven, and basically the kind of the extent that most owners are involved with it is, we'd ask permission to use the site and negotiate, what the cost for, what the timing and the cost of the tournament is going to be, and that's kind of the extent of the involvement in it. It's been one of the other kind of challenges that we've run into as Force, and I would say this is probably a global tag problem as well, is obviously during COVID you lost sites. Some sites did not make it through COVID. A lot of other businesses didn't make it through COVID. So you have these instances where, like, oh well, this group of players doesn't have a site anymore because their site ceased to exist. They still want to play, that's cool, and still try to keep them involved, but there are less advanced player friendly sites within Force currently, especially within the States, than there were prior to COVID. And so that is kind of a tricky thing to work through, because if you don't have at least the basic buy-in from ownership / management to even allow non-standard games to be run, then you can't build anything, regardless, if you're looking at Space Marines 5 as the primary tournament game, or Space Marines 4 or Laser Ball or anything. If they're flat out saying, oh no, we're an FEC and we don't want to run anything other than a basic individual or team game, that causes its own set of challenges with trying to grow a competitive scene.
Well, and you're actually reading my mind, because one of my questions for you guys was really right on that same topic, because it can be a little bit challenging. What we are seeing a lot of is you're seeing less of the standalone arenas, and more of laser tag seems to be moving into that FEC model, which makes it a little bit tougher, because sometimes an owner will not want to veer off of the standard path, but that doesn't mean that they don't have people who are falling in love with the game. So what would you suggest to players who want to get involved in the scene, and maybe they don't have a site where they can regularly practice the SM5 or any other special formats that might not be accessible to them just because of the nature of the business environment? What do you say to grow the scene out of this environment?
That sounds like more a question for Lucy or Marcus over in Europe, since they're the ones who are traveling constantly. So, one, be independently wealthy, so you can just go to all the tournaments and get your reps that way.
Okay, check that one off.
Well, I think one thing you kind of need to make almost like a business case for ownership, as if you want like local play. If you have no other options except for this one site, and the ownership like, I don't really want to have the regulars, then maybe it like come at it from a business perspective. So if they have a night where they are not necessarily closed but quiet, put numbers together. Hey, look, we get this many people in at this cost per head at this time frame, then that's an extra X number of dollars in your pocket each week that you didn't have to do anything for. And as a player / site liaison, that person can be the person who takes care of it, so they don't have to necessarily pay a staff member to promote it, although that's always really nice when that happens. That's kind of my thought.
Yeah, it's also challenging when whoever is staffing or running the tag in the facility, and again, this is not force specific. I'm saying this more as a general tag issue. If the people running the tag don't care about it, if they don't really have a passion for it, as it were, or a desire to go beyond the absolute bare minimum of what's there, then it's going that then it is going to be challenging to try to get anybody hooked. There's a certain amount of if there's enthusiasm from the staff about the thing, that can translate to enthusiasm from the people playing for the thing. Like, I know for me, the first time that I played in Sacramento in that late February of '97, part of what made it so so vibrant for me and hooked me was that everybody who was working there, including the owners, because the owners were actually on site a lot at that point, were all visibly excited about the game and so happy to explain the game to you, and so happy to try to give you tips and tricks and say, oh hey, try this, oh hey, we have this other game mode, like all this kind of little hype building stuff that had I gone in and the staff had just been like, yeah, here's some laser tag, you shoot people and you walk around the arena and you shoot things, and here you go. I mean, would I still have fun? Yeah, but would I have been like, oh my god, this is so super cool that I need to come back like every weekend from now until they hire me? Which in that case was like 3 months, 4 months. Either way, it's kind of a chicken and egg problem though, because if there's nobody excited about it, how do you get people excited about it?
Well, enthusiasm definitely is the key. And ideally, you're going to hope that that enthusiasm comes from the staff at the center. But sometimes I've personally seen success come out of just having a really enthusiastic player step up and do exactly what you're saying. So, I think that a lot of times our community just really has to kind of raise the level if you want to get that advanced kind of play going. And I just hope that we see more evolving out of that. And I'd love to know what you guys think is the future. If you could predict, what do you think is the future of competitive laser tag?
So I think we are starting to see a little bit of this within our scene, with laser ball taking off in various locations. And here's the thing, like over the years, I have, again, wrongly predicted the demise of our tournament scene several times. Apparently, that is my thing. I was wrong about our pod, going live, and I've been wrong about our scene dying multiple times. But every time, like, I think that the scene is dying, it comes back to, as much as Space Marines 5 is a fantastic game, it does have a high barrier to entry. Like, you need to have a baseline understanding of the basic game. You need to have some skills built up from other games, and then you need to actually be able to have a decent amount of time with this very advanced game mode. And whether or not your site is going to let you do that, we've covered. That can be a challenge. The nice thing with laser ball is that the reality is it's a much lower barrier to entry game. You can play it with less people. It flows better in a shorter game. Like Space Marines 5, we've had numerous conversations on our pod about, the game length is 15 minutes. And it's 15 minutes because the way the game flows, it needs to be 15 minutes. We've experimented with shorter game times in the past, and it's just not the same game. It doesn't work as well in a shorter game. Whereas laser ball, you can play it for 4v4. You can play it in a 7.5 minute game. So you do those things, and now suddenly you have potentially more people playing in a competitive way because you don't have the high barrier to entry. It's kind of the one of the same reasons I see Zone, especially in Australia. That's why I see like their scene being as successful as it is with a number of teams, even post COVID. Their tournament game, yes, obviously at a high level, it's gonna be different than standard general public people off the street playing it, but it's essentially the same game. You're just playing it at a higher level, so you've got a lower barrier of entry to get people involved. So all that is a very long-winded way of saying, yes, I think Space Marines 5 will continue to be the pinnacle of Force tournament scenes, but I do see a really good place for, I think DK mentioned this earlier in the pod, for either a related or even parallel track of Laser Ball as a tournament scene within Laser Force. I always thought it was going to be Space Marines 4 actually was going to be the fallback because of the lack of lives component, the lower barrier to entry. You can play it in smaller teams, and you can play it in a shorter game, and you can play it as a 3-team game if you need to. There was like a whole bunch of
Laser Ball
reasons.
is relatively new though, so
Yeah.
It might have just been that. And it's not just you, Than. There have definitely been other people who have talked about our scene declining or dying, whatever you want to say. And honestly, I've kind of tried to tamp it down among, I think, players from our generation, because there are lots of people that we've played with, probably since before 2010, but like a lot of people who were the core tournament scene in internationals in 2010, some of them don't attend as regularly anymore. Some of them don't play every week. Some of them have actually like retired from laser tag, to the extent that that means anything. But just because you've seen the people that you've associated with for a long time moving on and doing other things, it doesn't mean that the game is dying. Because I look at all the things that people like Mischief and the other Loveland players, I almost called them kids. They're not kids anymore though. They're adults. They're basically the same age that I was in about 2009 when we started picking up the scene and trying to propel it forward. So I think it's just getting handed off to a new generation, because you have the Loveland players that are building their leagues, that have been trying to host more tournaments. You have now the Cedar City site that's up and running, that is co-owned by several other people in our Space Marine scene. So there is another generation that is picking up where we left off. And although, some of us are maybe not as involved as we once were, or our bodies can't take quite as much punishment as they used to in these tournaments, there are still people who are interested in it. So I think it is just in a transitional phase to a new generation is picking up where the old one left off. And I think it will continue as long as people want to keep playing, which hopefully they will.
I think it has to happen as well. Like there's always, whenever you get a changing of the guard, there can be that old school that has a real gatekeeper mentality to whatever scene. The thought process is, this is mine, don't touch it, which can't happen. It's such a stifling thing for growth. It has to be, the baton has to be handed. And we've got a couple of active sites with young talent coming through that are keen to kind of pick that up and run with it, which is, it's so important that happens. Otherwise, just things, get too guarded. And when you guard something too heavily, it stifles it. So, it's really important that happens.
And I think it's very possible that laser ball might be just the next generation's version of, in that
That'd be awesome.
it certainly lends itself to competition in a similar way. But I like how you put that barrier to entry is a little bit less, because I think it's very relatable to people in terms of it being a parallel to, say, soccer or basketball. So things that people are a little bit more familiar with. So maybe that's where the next generation of taggers come in.
There's no parallel to Space Marines, I guess, except for war, which is war's not a game. Yeah.
Well, and certainly there's room for both and for all games. I think that it's, kind of ironic that the manufacturers work so hard to provide so many different game varieties, and then sometimes we get stuck into the mentality of one or two games are the thing. Other than Laser Ball and SM5, I'd love to know, like, what are the most interesting formats in your minds?
So my personal favorite non SM5 games, Photon for sure, because
Love that answer.
well, I am pandering a little bit, but it is also true. There's something to be said for, respecting the roots of the game. And the reality is it's such a well balanced game. It forces arena awareness. It forces you to think strategically about what you're doing. It's a great training game. I mean, obviously it's a great tournament game as well. I understand that. And I'm sure that I am going to get some sort of hate mail from somebody for me just calling Photon a good training game. It's probably going to be Havoc.
Some 65-year-old's going to be very unhappy with what you're saying.
But Photon top that list. I also am a huge fan of Time Warp, because just because the overall mechanics on that game are so interesting, in terms of, the game is X amount of minutes long, but you have X minus whatever amount of time, and you have to somehow make it through the game by actively being a part of the game. Like it's such a great mechanic. And then last but not least, Highlander. And it's classic. Highlander, again, originally back in the day in Sacramento originally ran its memberships as a very premium thing. Like you bought the membership, it was a premium price, and you got access to the other games besides standard. And
that's so smart.
It was $32 back in the day, which I think with inflation is about $250 today.
Something like that, yeah.
What's it in New Zealand dollars? Second mortgage.
But that particular game, at the time, that in the first definitely the first few months the Sacramento was open, like that was the premier game. Like that was the game that you bought your membership so that you could play that game. Because
that was the individual bragging rights game. I felt that's how you proved that you were like better than somebody else was beating them in Highlander.
Yeah. So those three for me are my favorite non-Space 5 games. I mean, I do actually enjoy pretty much everything in the catalog. Like I will voluntarily play everything bar one game of the Laser Force catalog.
Shout out Smalley.
Yeah.
Wabbit season.
Yeah. Wabbit season can get stuffed. I have no idea why they ever thought that game was a good idea, but whatever. I feel like
I already said Photon last time I was on, so I'll try to give a different answer this time around. Another game that I think is relatively recent, but I find really fun and I think is very easy to explain to the general public as well, is Color Conquest. I think Color Conquest is one of the best ideas that Laser Force has come up with in the last, I don't remember exactly when it came out. It's probably been close to 10 years at this point, because I know we still had it in Sacramento when we closed, which was, a while ago at this point. But it's a fun game because it's dynamic and it's ever changing. And there are lots of little goals that you can have for the game about not wanting to get converted or trying to build up a streak over a certain amount of time. It teaches you about how to move around, how to use the arena to your advantage, how to play when you have the numbers and when the numbers are against you. So that I think is also a fun like training game to use, for lack of a better term, like Dan said. So I think that's a really good one that's come out recently as well.
Yeah, I was going to say Color Conquest, like that has good scalability as well. So, the public can play it and enjoy it, and people who are highly competitive can play it and actually have, like you said, tangible goals, tangible milestones to kind of achieve in a game. There's nothing quite like, not being converted in a Color Conquest. It's actually quite a hard thing to do. And it's hard to do in both a public forum, because usually there's 30 people, 20, 30 people. And it's hard to do if you're playing against regulars, because they all know how to play the game and how, to kind of balance their lives and all that sort of stuff. So it's got good bones, does Color Conquest. We used to play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in New Zealand. In fact, that was probably our most played game, even over and above Space Marines 5 for a long time. It just, I don't know, there's something about being able to cast spells using your phaser that just, it's so good, with such a good use of the technology. And it would be really cool to see Laser Force develop the game a little bit to be better used with the touch screen, or just the Gen 8 equipment. But I mean, there's not really any incentive to do that, so it would be cool. But maybe if Scorpion's got a weekend off.
Well, I'll just put my 2 cents in that I love the escalation games just because I love to see a big score at the end.
Yeah. Check out my 6 figures.
All right. Awesome. And speaking of figures, let's kind of go back to your podcast. And I am all about harnessing the power of the laser tag community to make a positive difference. And I know that you guys are as well. And I respect very much that you have used your platform to do a charity stream. And I'd love for you to tell me more about this. And is there anything coming up we should know? Or can you tell me about what you've done in the past?
So when was it? I want to say 2021. We've done 3, I think. 2021. No, 2020.
2020, yeah, we've done.
If you've done 3, then yeah.
So 2020, I saw a post on Facebook from a local organization called Gaming for Charity, and it was so random because it was like around Christmas time, or like the week before Christmas. I saw this post, and I think somebody that we knew had participated or something, and I was like, we could do something like that. Like, why don't we try and see if we could raise $500 or something for charity? Like, that'd be really cool. So I think within 48 hours I'd sort of thrown together a rough schedule for that particular event, and we ended up raising just over 6,000 New Zealand dollars, which is pretty good. For a foundation here in New Zealand called Koru Care, which essentially is New Zealand's Make-A-Wish Foundation. So that was really cool. And we had I had such a good time. Essentially, the format of the event was you do a marathon stream, so it could be 8 hours, could be 12 hours, could be 16. I chose 16 hours because I kind of wanted to challenge myself, challenge us to do an extended period of time. When we made the transition to Twitch, there's a couple of other streamers that I know from outside of the laser tag community, specifically a channel called Blue Sin, SYNN, and None More Gray _. So both of those guys are friends of mine. They play in a band called These Four Walls. Very, very entertaining guys. Particularly Blueson. Blueson's a front man, so he's got charisma, and he's got the voice and
all that is.
The
well,
Riz, as the kids say.
I've never heard that term. What are you old men talking about?
You're just not with it, Steve.
I know. Damn it. I was just so out of the loop. So he's got the Riz, and it means that he's very, very, very good at, like, kind of entertaining people. Yeah, but we ended up so Gray has famously got quite a large beard. And halfway through that event, it's actually his now wife had said, "Hey, look, how much do we have to get to in order for you to shave the beard off?" And he put a figure out there of $6,000, and we hit it, which was great. Off the back of that event, and we had so much fun with it, we switched across to this company here, Tiltify. Tiltify are a little more stream friendly, so they have overlays and stuff that allow you to have kind of more interactive stuff going on with within your stream. So when somebody donates, lights and stuff will go off and the total will update and blah blah blah. We went through them last year, and we used their program to raise funds for a children's hospital here in New Zealand, which was actually, I think, the second year we did fundraising for the children's hospital.
Yep.
The first time I'd been growing my hair for a couple of years at that point. The last time I'd cut it was just before my dad passed away in 2019. I got a haircut about a week before he passed. And back in his heyday, he had luscious locks. So I thought, well, I'm going to grow my hair out in sort of memory of him. So when we did the podcast, when we did the charity the charity event for the second time, people said, "Hey, how about you shave your head?" And it was really tough for me to kind of make that decision to do it. I was very not keen to shave my head because it meant so much to me. So the figure I said, well, look, okay, if we get $10,000, if we raise $10,000, I'll shave my head. I don't want to, obviously, but I will. And the support from like just our little corner of the internet, we don't have a massive following, but man, the support we got from the laser tag community, the Twitch community as a whole, but there was I think a lot of the major contributors came out of our laser tag community. We raised that year, we raised $16,000 for Starship Children's Hospital, and like, I mean, we were all very emotional about it.
Yeah,
as you would be.
Definitely.
It was crazy, and it all came off the back when I kind of I reckon I possibly have like undiagnosed ADHD or something, because like tangent all over the place. I have an idea and think, oh, like, why not do a thing? And so for the charity streams to come out of seemingly a random desire to just want to do something, we've the channel and our wider community has raised close to $50,000, maybe a little less, maybe $40,000.
Still,
It's fantastic.
Still a lot
for a small channel. I think that you especially, Steve, should be really proud of the work that you've done and put into that. And I know I helped host some small events, but really you spearheaded that whole effort. So I'm just glad that we could be a part of that too.
It was great. And we haven't so this year I've had a couple of things happen, and it sort of pushed out plans of doing another charity stream, but I am very keen to hold another one early next year. We for some reason I keep holding it kind of this time, sort of October, November, and it kind of gets a little tough because Christmas is just around the corner, and people. I couldn't believe last year, actually, because it was the third time we did it, and we decided to go from 16 hours to 24 hours, which was a little bit of a mistake.
Dumb.
Lesson learned.
Yeah, I would go back to 16 when we do it again, but yeah, the generosity that people have even though, Christmas is right around the corner, we'd come out of lockdown. People have started kind of leaving their houses and going on holidays and able to actually spend their money on doing other things, still managed to dig deep and raise a lot of money for an awesome cause. So yeah, it's probably the thing I'm most proud of that has come out of this crazy, adventure.
Well, that is tremendous. And so congratulations to you guys for doing that. I think it's really admirable that you're using your platform to make a difference like that. Wonderful to see.
Well, you're doing the same. Obviously you're an inspiration to us as well with your fundraising efforts. So it's really inspiring to see, people in our community actually wanting to make a difference with their platform. Because, not everyone does that. It's really awesome to see the work that you do as well. So yeah,
well, thank
love
you
it
so much. Tag for a Cause just celebrated 3 years also. So
that's awesome.
Need to go get my medal
fantastic.
off my trophy shelf over there.
awesome. So yeah, you guys are doing some great work, and I'm going to give you a moment to use this platform to kind of talk about, I don't know if we'll call this merch or whatnot, but I'll just ask you, please help connect the dots for me between laser tag and disc golf.
Okay.
That man is the connection.
Yeah, Steve was the connection. DK and me are out on this conversation, kind of, sort of.
So I know nothing about disc golf, but I've seen these frisbee-like things with your logo, and I just want to know, explain this to me, please.
Yeah, so again, this is another one of those things where I'm just like, oh, how about we do this? And I don't have a lot of people to rein me in. The boys do their best, but
we try. And
we encourage it.
And we try, but sometimes we fail miserably. And yeah,
I've become very so outside of Laser Force, I've found a passion for playing disc golf, which for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's essentially golf but with a frisbee. You throw a frisbee, and you count how many times it takes you to throw the frisbee into a basket. And there's a few people in the Laser Force community that play, and I've heard people talk about it, and it is what it is. But earlier last year or the year before, I think, I've got a group of cousins that play, and they send a message out to all of our cousins, and there's a lot of us because I come from a Maori / Irish heritage. Famously, those two cultures produce a lot of children. So we had a group message come out to our cousins group, and they said, hey, look, the only time we ever see each other is at tangi, or just the Māori word for funeral. We only see each other at funerals. Let's do something together that's a little more positive, that's a little like lighter than a funeral. Although a Māori funeral is something to witness. It's crazy. It's great.
It's a little different.
Oh yeah. And so we started a tournament called the Battle of the Cousins. And we all compete a couple of times a year. We get together, we play disc golf. We have a couple of alcoholic beverages, and then, we see who comes out of it victorious. Whenever I get into a thing, I generally put all of me into that thing. And so disc golf has become that thing for me. And I had a thought recently. I was like, you know what? why don't I like design like a range of Laser Force discs? Because we actually this year at Nationals, I kind of organized a tournament, a disc golf mini tournament pre Laser Force tournament. And how many people came out to play? It was like
10, 12, something like that.
Yeah,
I mean, let's be honest, it was a contest between you and discos too, but the rest of us had a good time throwing discs around.
Ducky was there. Ducky put in a good shift.
It was like you and discos too, then Ducky, then the rest of us.
But as a result, again, I'm a pusher. I'll push everything. So we've pushed disc golf into the community, and a large chunk of the community have kind of picked it up and started playing on the regular. So I thought, oh, we'll do it. Let's do a range of of discs that are tailored around the Space Marines community. And so I designed 3 discs, a putter, a driver, and a mid range, and put sort of Laser Force centric artwork on it. I think we've got the phaser. That's the main driver. You can play with the phaser. You could play with the double tap, which is the putter, and you could play with the Space Marines, which is I think the long range driver. So, and the range was called the Resupply disc golf range. So we we do these things again because why not? Why not do things?
Love it.
But I put it out to the community, and they, like a lot of people, turned up again. They were like, yeah, we'll get behind it. So like we sold out within an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty great. So I'm expecting those to come out in a week or two, and then they'll be flying around. That large portion of it actually heading to the East Coast. So yeah, you might end up seeing a couple flying around.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. And they look nice on a wall, I would think too. So
Oh yeah, well, I think that's why they sold out, because people who bought them were like, well, I'm going to buy a set to throw and then a set to hang on the wall. Yeah, like for me, most of the time whenever I produce merch, it's because I want it, but I don't want to pay for it. So if I could get a lot of other people to buy in, usually I get mine for free. So peek behind the curtain.
very good. Any other creative projects or interesting things going on with the podcast that we should know about or keep on the radar?
I would say DK's sort of taken a couple of steps in that direction. So what did we end up naming that series that you were sort of setting up?
I think my running joke was going to be I was going to call it something different every episode because I messed it up. I messed it up the first 3 times that I did it. But basically just doing some commentary on game footage from this last year's tournament. I fired off a few of them within a few weeks, but then the toll of regular work started adding up during the term. I'm a history professor when I'm not playing laser tag, but obviously I'd rather be playing laser tag. But sometimes I have things to do, so I've gotten a little behind on that. But that's one thing that I really love doing for the channel, is just really getting into the weeds with breaking down game footage and looking for small little areas to improve, since that's a thing we can do now since we have the footage and the score screens.
Plus it is always nice on those, like when you're in the game and you think the game is going one way and it ends up completely different. It's nice to be able to do the rewatch and like pinpoint the exact moment that one random thing happened that spun the game, or even if you're just watching the tournament game, you're not playing in it and whatnot, and same sort of thing, going back through and finding that moment where an attack either didn't come off the way that people thought it was going to, or something was overly effective, and then trying to break down why it was overly effective. It's a fun thing, and I mean, I've been entertained by listening to the breakdowns. So yeah, hopefully your work lightens up a little more so that you're able to do a few more of them, because selfishly I want some more of that. So
yeah, I was gonna say I'm a big fan. I'll listen to DK talk about anything. I'm a big fan of hearing, especially when you get like really passionate about the thing that you're talking about. I love it. I'll listen to you talk for hours about laser tag. It's great.
I just turned into like the Charlie Day meme from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia with like the conspiracy board.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to watch you get to that point. It'd be great. He's freaking
well, this
out
sounds
again.
Awesome. And yeah. I'd love to just review again, like where can we see what you're doing, and the entirety of where can people go to watch the Resupply podcast?
So we do a show every weekish on Twitch. If you go to twitch.tv/the resupply, that's
I magically made it appear, right?
yeah, that's great. That's probably the best way to consume our content. One of the best things when we switched to Twitch was the ability to be able to interact live with people during the show, which I think we all really love because it adds something when people are able to chime in and give you their take on what you said or call you an idiot or a mix of both.
Yes, although sometimes your undiagnosed ADHD definitely comes out if there are too many buttons that get pushed at one time.
I've got flashing lights when stuff happens and sound cues. So yeah, it's just it's crazy.
And then every so often chat just derails us completely, and I'm sitting there with my head in my hand going, okay, are we going to
just
get
encouraging
back on the
them
rails?
more?
Yeah, are we
they feed off your booze.
They do. And
there's
pretty
plenty
hilarious.
of times where I've said something and both of you have double face palmed at the same time. It's great. So Twitch once a week. I also do non-Laser Force related content during the week on that channel, because we had the channel set up and I thought, why not utilize it more than just the podcast. So you'll see my face on there quite a bit, usually with these two. There's also, if you can't watch it live, we put all the shows up in their entirety on our YouTube, which is youtube.com/@the resupply. I think we have a Twitter. A shout out Stallion. Stallion manages our Twitter. We have Discord. We've got a merch store as well, because again, that was another thing of let's just make a merch store. I don't know the link to that.
Oh, you got to find me the link for that, because I love my tags. So.
Yeah,
I need to buy some resupply stuff.
We're just about to. Actually, Lucy, who's on your show out of the Czech Republic, has done a lot of artwork for the show. And she's just put together a design called Couch Commander, which was a reference to one of our shows recently, where it's those people who watch. We over the last few years, Laser Force Tournaments has streamed the tournament, the internationals tournaments, the East Coast, West Coast tournaments, all that stuff. Either they stream it or we stream it on the resupply. And one thing we've noticed is, much like couch, what are they? Monday
an armchair quarterback is the analogy you're looking for. Yeah.
So we were talking about the so-called couch commander who sits there and chat, like, why are they dropping their nukes, or
guilty,
like, oh yeah,
guilty.
So that shirt will be available. I'll endeavor to put that up this week. But there's the international shipping and stuff. So I'll send you a link, and maybe people will buy our things
right there.
Awesome, love to see that. Well, I look forward to hearing lots more podcasts from your channel, and I want to thank you guys for being here. And I always like to end things with a little rapid fire tag talk, some quick questions to you, some quick answers back. And since there are 3 of you, I'd love to give you one question and have you each come up with an answer. And my caveat to this is, okay, 3 of you can't come up with the same answer. So
can they be wildly inappropriate answers?
Aren't they all?
Yeah. Yes, they are.
I guess we'll find out. You guys ready?
Yes.
All right. We kind of went over this a little bit, but let's throw it back. Favorite game format? Dan?
Space Marines 5.
DK?
But how could I not say?
I just hospital passed both DK and Steve-O with that.
Yep. So I guess I have to fall back to Space Marines 4.
DD.
All right.
See, that's fast, DK. That's how you do fast.
That's right.
My brain.
Okay. Favorite arena you've played?
Sacramento.
Brisbane.
Auckland.
Again, broke DK's brain because both those would have been his answers.
Yeah.
Didn't
I
we just
interact,
win
I
in
interact with dead
Auckland,
people for a
maybe?
living. Give me a break.
I mean, I'm just thinking if I had won in internationals, I might say the arena had happened.
Yeah.
Kind of where I ended up defaulting.
Yeah.
All right.
Surely the best one.
Coolest person you've ever met through laser tag.
Steve.
Steve! No. Oh, damn it! That's a tough one.
Okay,
That's a tough one.
how about this? Let's modify that question of nope, we cannot mention anybody who's on the show.
Okay,
Perfect.
that's a good rule.
Steve!
The other Steve.
Night Owl. I'm gonna go with Night Owl.
Oh,
Good answer.
Yeah, he's a player from the now former Oakley Leisure Force in Australia, and yeah, it just is one of the most calming presences in the scene, like
most
ever.
of the time.
Most of the time. Okay, most of the time. But yeah, just very calm, very matter of fact, super easy to work with organizing stuff and team building and whatnot. Just an absolutely lovely human being.
The best. Yeah.
Yep. I'll say Rusty, since he's been the best player in Laser Force for quite a long time. I would describe us not even as having a one-sided rivalry. That implies that I had some kind of chance at some point, but he was kind of like the measuring stick. So as I said on our tournament recap pod, it was really special to be part of a team that could actually compete against him and get a win for once.
He just loves the fact that you just twist the knife a little more, DK. Just twist it.
In like the most flattering way possible.
Yeah. It's that whole like where you compliment someone, but it's like actually an insult.
Yes, scores 10-1 now.
I'm gonna say Hoodlum. Hoodlum out of another one out of Oakley. I mean, it's hard to choose just one, and it's no disrespect for anyone because I love a lot of people from our scene, but Hoodlum is one of my favorite people on the planet. He's top bloke. I love being around him. His energy, his charm. Yeah, just one of the best. One of the best.
Good answers.
Yeah, that is actually a very unfair question because there are so many people that you could legitimately say this person, because I think the reality is, like, by and large, most of our scene is, we all get along. Yeah, we all get along amazingly well. At least now we get along amazingly well. It wasn't necessarily always the case in the past, but now is
we don't have the same testosterone levels as we once did. So
that's fairly accurate.
all the angst has sort of gone out of the room a little bit.
Yeah.
I love to hear the answers to that because I've gotten such a wide variety. I spoke to somebody not too long ago who named, and forgive me, I'm forgetting the name of the person, but it was like a recording artist. And I thought that tangentially, she met him through laser tag. So you never know.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
All right. Coolest place you've ever visited because of laser tag?
New Zealand.
Steve. Oh.
Australia. Only because I can't take Than's answer, but all 3 times I've gone to the Southern Hemisphere, they've been some of the best trips of my life. Just seeing things in a new perspective, literally seeing a whole new set of stars, and just adventuring around with some of my favorite people has been a fantastic time.
I'm gonna say Utah.
Huh?
Very good.
Just because
Utah is a majestic state.
Yeah, Zion was beautiful, but like it's funny actually how this game, this children's game of laser tag, has taken like all 4 of us all around the world. It's crazy, the friendships with people, the places we've seen. I think I was saying this. I mean, I said it a bunch, but most, not all, most of my major life events have in some way been linked to laser tag.
Yep.
Same.
And most of that is like travel. It's the reason why we travel.
Definitely. I love that laser tag has provided a reason to travel and to have experiences you wouldn't otherwise. In fact, not too long ago, I got to play with Fan out on the West Coast, and that was kind of a cool thing that was very unexpected that day. You just never know where you're going to land. At least I don't. All right. Favorite prize or souvenir?
Rapid
My favorite prize that I've gotten is from our old Space Marines leagues that we used to have in Sacramento. We used to give out things like jerseys, jackets, windbreakers. I actually just very recently, as a way of thinking about that, was over at my folks' place and found a nice little pullover windbreaker that said Winter 1998 Space Marines 5 Champions. And I'm like, I cannot wait to break this out. This has been in the closet for 25 years. It's still good. I can still wear it.
Awesome.
That's so rad.
Wow. I think I'm gonna go with it's right. I think I have to go with kind of a tie between the first place trophies I've got from 04 and 08. Because 2004, that win was with a team with DK and four other really great friends. That was the kind of the culmination of an inner sight issue for many years.
We had a rumble. It was like the Sharks and the Jets.
Yeah. So that particular win was just what was great from that aspect. And then 2008 was the win with Auckland in Ballarat. And that was special because, there was an element of kind of bringing Auckland through from a not good state into a state where they were competitive, and all the work that we had done in the lead up to 08 paid off. And so that was just one of those like very clear memory of finishing the final game of that tournament and coming out and collapsing. Just like,
know that feeling.
Like, we did a thing. I'm sorry. These apparently were not quick fire answers. Apparently we are really bad at this. Sorry about that.
Nobody gives me quick answers. I just like calling it rapid fire. All right, Steve, you got an answer for me?
Yeah, I would say I was going to say probably that first place 2008 trophy. But seeing as you took two answers, I'm going to go with this banner. Because this banner is
pretty cool.
It wouldn't have happened without laser tag. We got sent that in the post by Tiltify after the last fundraiser, and I hang it here pretty prominently to remind me of something great that we achieved as a team. So it's probably my favorite artifact, and I'm in a room full of artifacts.
Really? I hadn't noticed.
Yeah.
I love being around collectors.
I've got a real problem. It's a good thing the camera's not facing that way, because there's a lot of there's a tower, and it's not good.
It's funny because I've been to your house now, so I know what it looks like.
Yeah. It's a tower full of Nintendo Wiis.
Nothing wrong with that.
Wrong with that.
Well, all right. And we'll close this out with an easy one. Favorite snack at the concession stand?
Nestle Crunch Bar.
I like the red ropes, those licorice things got back in the day. Oh man, I used to just definitely go for those at carnivals and sports games.
Are we talking like specifically Laser Force? Because
Well, I know not every site has a concession stand, so you can be liberal with that question, but sure.
well, I would say I don't know if it counts, but the times that I've went to Sacramento Laser Force, Sean and Ian used to make pizzas on like a conveyor belt, and like nothing special, but there was something about those pizzas that was delicious. I'm gonna go with pizza. Pizza Sacramento.
Works for me. Great answers, guys. And thank you so much for taking time, especially from all of the respective time zones that we're coming at this from. Thank you so much. My guests, Steve-O, aka GND, DK, and Than, the hosts of the Resupply podcast. I hope lots of people tune in to see what you guys are up to. So thanks so much.
Thanks for
Thanks
having
for
us.
having us.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Listen for more episodes on the first and third Friday of each month. Want to be a guest on an upcoming episode? Find out more and follow my blog and website at TiviaChickLovesLaserTag.com.